that would not have been that way 5 years ago.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And, there's also been a surge in interest in people growing their own and home grow and people ordering grow tents. And I've seen sales of my book actually go up, because it's a beginner grow book. Actually, I have one right here.
Awesome. Plug the book. Tell us about the book, man.
It's a grow book. Yeah, it's a grow book for beginners. It came out in September of 2018. Actually, my publisher is in the UK. It's Octopus, which is a division of Hachette in the UK, and but it's actually now it's printed in the States in Newburyport, Mass. But yeah, it's meant for beginners. It's really easy to understand. Illustrations and big letters, and I really tried to make it so a grandmother could grow her own. If she was interested.
That's what we try to do as well. Keep it as simple as possible so people don't get intimidated.
Yeah, I think you have a higher chance of success in your first grow, especially if you just stay with the basics. Just grow a plant. That's all we need to do. Nothing fancy.
So I've seen your book is on Amazon, but you can buy it from your website as well.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and I sometimes I sell it on eBay. If people want to buy it directly from me, they can always contact me through any of my social media, or they could email me directly. Actually, it's dvinkovetsky, DVINKOVETSKY@gmail.com. That's my email, but any of my social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any one of those will work as well.
Fantastic. Okay, listeners, he has no excuse now. So tell me something about this wonderful job of yours selecting the top 10 strains of the year. How in the world does somebody land that position? Yeah, where do I apply, Mr. Danko?
Well, when I started working at High Times, I was answering the phone and breaking down boxes and things like that. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. But at the same time, I was growing my own and for other people that worked there and stuff. So, actually what happened was, Kyle Cushman moved in 2004. Around 2004, he moved to California from New York and gave up his job as the cultivation reporter. And I took over that job, having been in college at BU and learning how to write and all of that, and also knowing how to grow, two kind of specific skills that not everybody can always combine. Right.
At the time.
Especially at the
right,
time.
At the time.
Yeah, especially at the time. And so I kind of took over, started writing grow articles and becoming the cultivation reporter, and then writing about strains. So around that time I did, strain of the year, I think in 2004. And then 2005, I started top 10 rather than just choosing one. Right. And they weren't in any specific order, but they were just strains that either won the Cannabis Cup or were making a lot of noise that year, or a lot of different criteria go to choosing them, but it's a lot of fun. And a lot of it was because I was going to the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam at the time, and also traveling to Vancouver, British Columbia, Northern California, Oregon, places like that. And so I just had access to a lot of different strains and growers, and just kind of kept my ear to the scene, into the street of what was popular. And so, yeah, that's really how it came about. And then, year after year, you're gaining more and more knowledge and experience and meeting more and more people. So, yeah. And then at some point I started the Seed Bank Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah, right. And I heard about that.
That was really because so many people were asking me, who are the reputable seed banks?
That was your first book as well, right? You wrote a book about strains.
Right. In 2011, I did a official High Times field guide to marijuana strains. A little bit dated now. It's 10 years old.
It's changed a lot in 10 years.
Yeah, big time. I'd love to revise that book.
Do it, Danny. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That same year is when I started my podcast. High Times presents Free Weed from Danny Danko.
That's what I was listening to many years ago. Many years ago. Long time, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And we were really happy to put that out because it was free to the public and a way to spread information about growing and interview some of my heroes and idols in the industry as well.
Like I'm doing now. It's brilliant.
yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And at the time you don't even realize, since then some of these people have passed, and those shows have become you know, a document of their existence. And so I think, you know, Subcool and Dr. Lester Grinspoon and all these people. Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, and so you don't realize it at the time, but it has ripples that go beyond, and really people have told me, you know, that it helped them through their grows, and it's a nice feeling to know that, you know, you have some sort of an impact and spread the love of this amazing flower, because that's what it is. It's a healing flower. We're not talking about a narcotic or a drug, or, you know, it's a healer.
It's pretty yeah, it's pretty harmless if you really want to look at it that way. If it's used properly, it's a good medicine, and it does help more people than it hurts. Unfortunately, our government just had to make it the evil thing that it was. You know, it's not a good thing. So I'm gonna get back to the top 10 strains. I want to ask you: is there anything promising this year that we need to be looking at?
Well, you know, I don't work at High Times anymore. I actually have a new venture that I'm working on. I also have another podcast, Grow Bud Yourself. Now, I changed the name because that was the High Times name. So now it's Grow Bud Yourself. Same feed, you know, and all that. And recently linked up with these guys from the Northwest Leaf magazine. And so they have Northwest Leaf, they have Oregon Leaf, California Leaf, Alaska Leaf, and Maryland Leaf so far. And now we've teamed up to start Northeast Leaf, which is the 8 states of the Northeast US. And we're going to print our first issue in September. And I don't know if I'll revise, you know, the top 10 strains, but as far as strains that, you know, there's strains that are like very hyped up, like runts and cookies and things like that are very good strains. I like the sort of, you know, more heady sativas personally. I love a gassy indica as well, you know, depending. And the popular ones lately for me were the Mac Miracle Alien Cookies from Capulator. That's like, you know, just ridiculous. And GMO, there's one called GMO. It's not actually genetically modified, but it's called GMO, and it's like rank. It's almost offensive, the smell of it.
I've heard about these new terpenes. Yeah, the ones that almost smell like death.
It's weird. It's like garlicky. It's got a real distinct smell to it, and the concentrates that are made from it are even more so, where you smell them and you're like, ooh. But very potent, very strong, and that kind of thing grows on you. You know, it's kind of like blue cheese or one of those things where the first time you try it, you're like, I personally don't like blue cheese, but
I love it, man. It's one of my favorites.
But there's certain things that, you know, these certain acquired tastes, and I think the GMO I would classify in that category. And I do remember back in the day, you know, in the 80s and 90s, there was a thing called garlic bud. A guy named Professor Afghani here in New York was growing it, and it had that garlicky kind of you know, onion garlic kind of smell to it that was, you know, very different from the fruity and gassy kind of terpene profiles that we're used to. So yeah, there's those, and then of course there's like you know, so many different, you know, phenotypes of the runts and of the cookies and of all these different popular strains of it. I love them all. You know, I even Blue Dream and things like that people love to hate on. I mean,
see, I like Blue Dream as well. I like anything blue. I do.
I'm not much on Blue Dream myself. I understand you.
Right. There's a strain for everything and everybody.
There is. I just like every weed. There's no weed that's bad.
Yeah, and hash and hash too. You know, one of the things you guys benefit from that we don't is the imports. You know, the Moroccan and the Lebanese and Afghan, like the real you know, landrace hashish that's made in you know, countries that have had that tradition for thousands of years. And there's something to those that's just, you know, I love a good BHO or a rosin or you know, solventless extract, but I don't know, there's something about, you know, the real, you know, Nepalese temple ball hash and you know, that's
I can remember some Middle East hash in the 80s coming through and stuff. Yeah, and it was way different than the stuff you get nowadays. something about that old school tradition of how to make it. I'm not an expert on hash, but it was
I
good.
remember hearing about from the UK the
Oh,
soap
that's
bar.
terrible hash.
That's bad hash, right?
Yeah, I'll never forget soap bar.
That's got goat shit and stuff in
The
it.
plastic bags, I swear, I've burned little bits of soap bar off before, and there's been plastic bags in it. And when you put the light to it, it sets fire, and the fire don't go out.
No,
What's
and
that
we
about?
smoked that for years.
Yeah, that can't be good.
But you got to do what you got to do, man. You're massively experienced in like strains of weed. You must have tried so many. Lost count.
Anyone I've seen, I've tried, and I've seen a lot for sure. And I'm hoping there's more out there. That's why I love, people popping seeds and finding, doing pheno hunts and finding new things, because variety is the spice of life.
Very
and,
true.
Yeah.
Danny, you have smoked with some of the greatest. Who is the best that you have smoked with? Who did you have to sit down and have the best time with?
Wow, man, that's a tough one. I've had some amazing times for sure. A lot of hip hop artists and reggae artists, people from the acting world and musicians. But really, I would say, people like Dr. Lester Grinspoon or Jack Herer,
Wow.
Dennis Perone, maybe not quite as famous, but the stories that they tell and the knowledge that they impart, really just amazing. But
just to have conversations with them guys must have been amazing, man.
Yeah. Redman stands out too for me, the hip hop artist. He is a real true believer. He could have profited from cannabis. He could have his own strain and his own dispensary and this stuff. He just wants to do it right. He doesn't want to, he knows all about cannabinoids and medicinal effects and all of that. So he, to me, is I kind of classify people as true believers, and you can kind of tell when they're true believers, kind of everyday smokers that really care about the plant and about, all the benefits and the activism side of things. And there's nothing wrong with making money,
Yes.
I mean, like that's the truth. And, but I think, he's one of the ones who surprised me as far as his his love of cannabis and his knowledge about it. So but God, I could name a lot of names,
so many,
because there's been some fun times. I got to be one time on at Bonnaroo on the tour bus with Damian Marley and Cypress Hill. So all of them, and their whole entourage, them meeting for the first time, them also meeting each other for the first time, performing, and then coming back and smoking. And that was definitely one of those experiences. That was early on for me too, in 2004 or 3. And I remember just looking around thinking, like, I never thought I would be, in a situation like this.
Started off just packing stuff in the office of High Times, man, and now he's chilling with Cypress Hill on the bus. What?
Exactly. Mailroom to the top floor in one shot.
Mate. That's a story. That is.
Yeah. And the first time I went over to Amsterdam in the 90s and got to meet all of the breeders over there was really an amazing thing too, because I'd been growing some of their strains, and then to get to meet them and talk about the strains and pick up some pointers and even some genetics and things like that was really an eye-opener for me. One of those moments where there's no looking back. You're dedicated at that point to the plant. And so that was exciting too. But I meet people from all walks of life. I've met veterans with tears in their eyes that told me that cannabis saved their life. I've met people who have had issues with opiates and alcohol and things like that, and who replaced those things in their life with cannabis and really added years to their life and saved their life. And those moments are just as meaningful as any celebrity that I've met. It's nice to meet those people, and it's an honor. But there's plenty of people who no one's ever heard of that are amazing smoking companions as well.
Very cool.
Excellent attitude. Excellent. Beautiful.
So your new podcast, you're on episode 12 or something?
Yeah, we're on episode 12, right? We just put it out yesterday, and we're doing it weekly, dropping Thursday evenings with the episodes. And like I said, I'm working on this new magazine, Northeast Leaf, which I'm very excited about as well. So it's like, for a while I was kind of, not knowing what I was going to do from being let go from High Times because of the COVID. I basically was furloughed. It's everybody's struggling right now, obviously financially because of this. So it wasn't anything personal, and I don't take it personal, and I wish them all the best. It's just our paths, parted ways, and so that's why I started back up the podcast with a different name, and that gave me kind of something to do for a little while, and that got more and more exciting to me. And then partnering up with the Leaf Nation in order to put out these magazines has just got me like amped and excited to be back in print media. And the other exciting thing is it's a free magazine. So we charge our advertisers to reach people, but we don't charge the people. And I think that's a much better model in this day and age, because even millennials who you think may not be interested will grab one and pick it up and read it.
So if we have a U.S. listener that would like to get a hold of that free magazine, where would they find that?
Well, they go to neleafmag.com, and that has links to our press release, our Instagram, and ways to contact us if you're interested in subscribing, if you're interested in being a distributor, if you're interested in advertising.
Do you still do any growing, Danny?
It's been a little while just because of all the travel. But now that I'm home and I'm not traveling so much, I am, considering just popping up a little 4x4 tent, and just hand watering some plants in containers. Real simple. I just wrote a chapter, actually, literally just turned it in for Ed Rosenthal's new book. And it's the Keep It Simple Garden. Keep it simple. Instead of Keep It Simple Stupid, I called it the Keep It Simple System, because I didn't want to use the word stupid, but the Keep It Simple I wanted to do. And it's basically the same thing. It's just get yourself a tent that one person can put up and take down. You can buy it as a kit with the lighting included and everything. Don't get the complicated hydro system, rip that out of there. Don't purchase that. Just throw some 5-gallon or 10-gallon containers in there and hand water them. And, every 3 months you can have a quarter pound, half pound, maybe even a pound of flowers that, everything that went into it, all the, whether there was pesticides or, another thing I'm always railing about is overfeeding. I think, 99% of growers overfeed their plants, and that's myself included.
I would definitely admit I have done that.
If you see the burnt leaf tips, even in High Times, you can see it even in the centerfolds. There's these little burnt tips on the leaves, and that's a sure sign, at least, that you've gone over the limit. You're not going to kill your plants. You're not going to destroy the buds, but there's a little bit of excess nutrient salts and a
little bit more than she needed,
and it builds up, right? Especially in these containers. I'm always telling people, use less than recommended until you see, a little bit of green turning a little lighter color, and then you can bump it up. You can always bump it up, but it's very difficult to take it out.
Well, it's a quote you see around purses often. It's easier to fix an underfed plant than it is to fix an overfed one.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And
we're all about that.
And and the lightly fed plant is, then you don't have to flush, the way that people have to flush as much. You can flush, but you don't. It's not. If you overfeed for 8 weeks or 10 weeks and then you flush for a week or two, it's not going to flush it all out.
Yeah.
So right. I'm very big on lightly feeding plants, and so that you've lightly fed it, what strain it is, and that you had fun growing it, and it's
That's the most important thing, man.
And it's fun, and there's no feeling like creating your own cannabis. It's modern day alchemy. It's modern day.
There is, smoking your own cannabis.
Exactly. There you go.
Smoking your first homegrown. That is it. That's
absolutely.
The ultimate rush.
I still remember it, man.
To me, it's modern day alchemy, because you're turning soil and seed and light and air,
raw materials
into gold.
Product.
Into gold.
Yes.
You're spinning lead into gold.
Pretty much gold.
It's only a recent one for me as well, lads. Sure, I got my first harvest again in when was it? Back in January. That was my first harvest for nearly 15 years, nearly 20 years.
It's not very long, is it?
Or more.
Wow.
Oh, I love it again.
Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Else.
Yeah,
it is, and that's what we want to turn everybody on to, and that's what the whole podcast is about. High on homegrown. That's what we want to do. High on homegrown.
Just encourage people to grow their own. As you said, Danny, it's safer. You know what's gone into it. There's no pesticides, and it's so much cheaper in the long run. And your money isn't falling into the hands of criminals in the black market. For the guys who grow illegally, if you're giving to dispensaries, then it's falling into the hands of the criminals in the system.
Politics.
Yeah. Well, it's also any kind of cannabis cultivation is a political act, because you're creating, a peaceful weapon for our side. You know what I mean? And so, the more cannabis that exists, the harder it is for them to stop us. And the higher the quality, and the higher the vibration that's felt by everybody who consumes it, and they just can't stop it. It's a peaceful revolution, and we are peaceful warriors in that revolution as growers. Whether they know it or not, you are still committing a political act by cultivating cannabis.
We just had a fantastic political protest for to try legalize cannabis here in Ireland, Danny. It was only last week. There was nearly 2,000 people turned up to smoke up in the park. It was basically on the front lawn of the Irish president's house. And unfortunately our media completely blanked it. We got about a 10-second clip on the national media. It was absolutely disgraceful, and so many people turned up from all over Ireland, and there was especially in COVID, because we're still in lockdown measures here in Ireland, and there was big social distancing guidelines. Everything was fantastic.
Right. That's great. I hope it made it out on social media, and all
on
of
social media it did, thankfully.
That's all we've got to rely on nowadays.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, we are the media at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it is our voice. Correct. Social media is ours.
I think Ireland could benefit greatly from legalization.
Hugely.
All of the whole of the UK. And of course, Howard Marks from Wales.
Yes,
the great Howard
Mr.
Marks.
Nice himself.
Yeah, Mr. Nice. Yeah, I got to meet him a few times over.
Wow, no way.
Great guy. Yeah, great stories.
I'll bet. You've met Snoop Dogg too, right?
I have met Snoop. He's
cool, man.
Nice
big fan
guy.
of Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. He's a warrior for the cause, for sure.
Does he really smoke as much as he says?
Yeah, he's got a personal blunt roller on his staff.
That's
pays him like 50 grand a year or something.
Right. Some guys have a chef, or
exactly a weed chef.
He did cook with Martha Stewart.
Oh yeah, and she knows how to roll a joint too.
I'd like to interview.
Yeah, that's right. She's an occasional smoker apparently. There's so many people who keep it hidden,
Right. Well, she's hip, and she's pretty open about it. She said she knows how to roll a joint, and she does those things, mix brownies with Snoop, and she's been to jail,
Yeah.
She's cool.
I don't want to be stereotypical, but I could just see a Martha Stewart roll joint with a little ribbon around it and all pretty placed on the doily and everything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know why that just pops in my mind, but
the first thing she said when she got out of jail was, "There's way too many women in jail for nonviolent drug crimes. There's people who are in jail, even in Colorado and California and Washington State, places where it's legal to grow, and people are becoming millionaires, and at the same time, people are in jail for the exact same thing." And
crazy.
It's really crazy. And
is there any sign of the sentences being expunged?
Yes, some states have been working on it, and even California, they expunged a bunch of people's cases. They're slowly but surely working on it, but it's every day is too much. It should happen yesterday.
Yeah.
And so this
has been going on for decades. It's going to take a while to undo.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
It's true. Yeah. Honestly, we talked earlier about New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and I think if those three states go, the federal government can no longer ignore it. They have to make some type of a change, and we're hoping, nicotine and alcohol, these aren't things that are on any schedule. But they're far worse for anybody than cannabis. So I don't want it to be like Valium or like, a controlled substance. Obviously, we don't want it getting in the hands of children unless they are patients themselves. And, if there's the occasional person who has an issue with, it becoming habit forming and they need, it's not helpful for them, they can get their help for that. But, we don't want people thrown in jail. We don't want people thrown into rehab just because they're trying to avoid jail. And we just, we want to be treated like cannabis consumers and not criminals. And, we're getting there slowly, but it can't happen quick enough for me because, I've been at this for 25 years and people have been at it for longer, many other people.
Unfortunately, some people have died already trying to make this happen. And we're still
keep
working
that fight going in their name, and for me, the important things, number one is releasing the prisoners and expunging the records. Number two, preserving home grow, because some of these states that are going legal you are required to purchase at a dispensary. And I think, we need a level playing field. We need to have farmers markets and co-ops and places for the mom and pops to compete against the dispensaries. You don't have to close the dispensary. And if people want to go there, they're perfectly fine to do that. But I want to purchase my cannabis at a farmer's market in a nice glass jar from a farmer that I know and trust, that's local,
organically grown, safely processed, the whole thing. And quality craft cannabis that's cured and smooth.
If there's one thing I've learned in all my travels, and I've seen grow rooms from closets to hundreds of thousands of square feet, the bigger you grow, the harder it is to grow something of quality. And that small batch farmer is going to almost always have a better product than someone growing in big warehouses and greenhouses that are miles long. It's just a fact of how it's done. And that's the people I want to get my product from. I don't want to purchase cannabis from Monsanto or Marlboro or Budweiser or any. I want to get it from the couple with the farm with the living soil, and that improves on their soil year after year with beneficial bacteria and microbes, and that sun grown, that kind of thing.
Like you want to buy it like it's a fine wine.
Right. Exactly. And I'll pay extra for it. That's
exactly.
And I think there's a lot of other people just like me. And so we want to free the prisoners, preserve home grow. And when all this COVID shit is over, we want to have social use where we can get together and consume, not maybe we won't be passing each other joints. I'll have my joint. Have my joint. You'll have your joint.
It was like that for me before COVID, man.
Yeah, that's the Rasta way. That's the Rasta way.
It's becoming
I'll
more
roll
and more
one
that
for
way,
me, and you roll one for you, and we'll consume. I always love the circle and the passing and all that, but that's probably that's probably not going to happen.
It's not happening anymore. Sharing a bong with somebody, it's not happening.
Yeah, not happening. So things will be different, but we still want to be social and get together, even if it's distanced. And we need places to do that. Just like people who drink have bars, and
very true.
People who smoke have their cigar, humidor rooms and things.
Yes.
Wine caves.
Right. There you go. Yeah, exactly. We want our version of that. And, I want veterans and seniors to have access to medical marijuana at almost no cost, if any cost. That's why I called my show Free Weed, because I found that the more that I gave away, the more came back to me, and the less and less I ever had to pay for it.
It's very expensive at the minute in the illegal countries.
Well, yeah, because of the risk,
Yeah.
And in a country, think of a country like Japan, where a gram can sell for $80. Because you can go to jail for 10 years for possessing it. So, or Indonesia, right? Where you can be executed. They were going to execute that poor Australian woman, Chappelle Corby, because she had a pound or two in her surf bag that she brought to Bali. And it's a surf town where people are surfing. You have to have cannabis in a surf town, right?
Exactly.
but
what fun of ways without weed?
But nevertheless, there are places in the world that still have the death penalty for cannabis, and it's mind-boggling, but it's the
it's
truth.
crazy, isn't it?
And a place like that, it's going to cost more. Think about jail, right? Even here in the U.S., the jail, they have cannabis in the jail, but it's going to cost you because it's hard to get in there, and it might be kind of funky too. It might have those poop terps, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Those ones that I was talking about earlier, the fecal
like
tones.
the hash that they call in Spain, they call it culero. It's like egg shaped, It's like I hope this had a lot of plastic around it, you know what I mean?
Unless they kept it warm at least.
Oh man, but that's honestly, Danny, it's why I only grow a one plant grow at a time now in Ireland, because it's just so I can't afford, like if I got caught with 3 plants, I will spend a year in prison. And I will spend it's a €5,000 fine.
That is just awful. That is awful. And
yeah.
it's the Emerald Isle, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you guys know, I mean, GW Pharmaceuticals is growing thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of plants in the UK. I remember I was driving in Spain with a friend, and I saw the pharmaceutical poppy fields that they have there. And I was like, what do you mean? I figured, this must all come from Afghanistan or something. Nope. They grow this right in Spain for Bayer and all of these companies. And, those companies are here for cannabis. I mean, they're taking over in the hydroponics industry. That's Scott's Miracle Grow has Hawthorne, and they are buying up all the companies. They bought Gavita Lighting, General Hydroponics Nutrients. They're buying basically, the best lighting, the best nutrients, the best tray systems, American Agritech.
Everything that sells the best, they want it.
And they bought the distribution for it as well. And Scott's Miracle Grow, they make Roundup. They work with Monsanto and Bayer, and those companies are here, and they're gonna be here. We can't stop them from being here, but we have to create an alternate model to compete with them for the people like us who care. And there's more like us. There's a ton of them, and the more people who come to cannabis, the more they're going to want to learn about the highest quality cannabis as well, and be whether they're a patient or just a connoisseur, they're going to want the best product. That's why I encourage, that's the legalization that I envision. It's not just being able to go to some big store and buy gummies. It's to boost the economy for the mom and pops and the co-ops and the small farmers.
Local economy.
Boost the economy everywhere. I mean, you can see the amount of money that's been made in the States and that have legalized. And the government could be doing the same here. Instead of the money falling into the black market, it could be going to the government as taxes and spent on schools and hospitals and all these different things that we need money for right now,
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because, I'm here in New York, and our roads, are really, really bad. And then, go to Colorado and the roads are perfect. Yeah. And it's because they're using the tax from cannabis to pay for the roads, pay for the schools, and it's you can see the actual results are benefiting everybody. And so how could they be against it? The roads are better, the schools are better funded, and once even the square people that don't smoke at all, once they see that, it's the veil is off. The whole idea that things are going to fall apart and society is going to be destroyed by legalizing cannabis, it's gone.
Yeah.
They realize we have always been here in the background.
Right.
We are just now in the open.
Right. Oh. Yeah. Steve D'Angelo says we're from out of the shadows into the light. That's
more eloquent.
Well, like I said, I'm giving him credit for it too, because I like the phrase, but it's the truth. We are all around you, and they're worried about people driving high, and I got news for them. We've been driving high this whole time.
Exactly.
Good point, man.
Yeah, and driving. I mean, I'm much more worried about people driving drunk, people driving tired, people on sleeping pills, or people on some of these pharmaceutical drugs that can really knock you out. I'm much more worried about them driving.
Even cold medicine.
Right. Yeah. Even cold medicine. I mean, certainly.
Absolutely. I know the wife and I do some cannabis tourism sometime out in the West, and we've always noticed that you can get cannabis real easy. But for tourists, there's not really a place that you can consume cannabis in these recreational legal states.
Exactly. Even
some lounges have rules that you have to be a resident and you can get on a bus, but for an hour or two, and that's about it. So it's really tough for cannabis tourism's not even well taken care of.
Yeah, it's totally true. In Colorado, you can buy cannabis, but there's no place to actually legally consume it as a tourist. And your hotel will charge you money if you smoke in the hotel.
We used to book balcony rooms, and I know you're not supposed to do it, but that's exactly what
you degenerate monkey. You're just breaking the rules like that.
I know all the balcony hotels. The Warwick, every room has a balcony.
The Warwick was a big one, but I mean, when the pool broke, that broke our heart.
So we're on the same page. Yeah, the Warwick and Vegas is a big issue too, because it's the same problem. People are just walking down the street smoking a joint, and if a Vegas cop catches you smoking a joint walking down the street, it's legal. You purchased it legally, but you get a $650 ticket for open consumption. It's like, it's ridiculous. And and they,
but you can walk down the street with a cocktail in your hand all day and all night. And that just doesn't make sense to me, Danny. I just can't get that.
Yeah, well, we're lifting the veil,
and we're getting there. I know. We got to start somewhere, and we have to crawl before we can walk, and we have to walk before we can run. But so I would say that you've definitely been a great activist, though. At least getting us to crawl now. We're talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. Now we have the wind at our back, and it's almost seems inevitable to pretty much anybody you speak to that it's not a question of if cannabis will be legal, but just when will cannabis be legal. So it is interesting to look back and think, all these people thought it was a dead end and that, it wasn't worth pursuing. And yet here we are.
Yeah, I'll be frank with you. I was probably one of those people that just said, you'll not have it happen. But you have to remember, I grew up in the deep South, and it's so conservative here. I just absolutely never saw a single crack in the armor anywhere. But lo and behold, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, here it goes, bang, and the crack happened.
Yeah.
And then every day I'm watching it open a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. And if we get that Northeast block, that pushes us way past 50% of the population having access to recreation.
Wow, really?
And like you said,
that's so cool, man.
Yeah, once we have 50%, it's the argument that it's, does the nation really want it? Well, the nation has it already. 50% of them will have it.
That's what happened with alcohol prohibition. The states decided not to help the federal government in their investigations, and the law was repealed. There was an amendment to the Constitution, and that was that. Alcohol was legal, and it was New York State, I think, that was first to tell the federal government that they weren't going to participate in alcohol raids, and they weren't going to help. And the feds can't do it without the help of the local government. So that's interesting. But another interesting, you mentioned the Deep South. I was just in Oklahoma a couple, 4 or 5 months ago. We did a cannabis cup in Oklahoma. There are dispensaries everywhere in Oklahoma. It's very low entry level to be a part of the industry in Oklahoma. There are concentrate laboratories. It's popping off. Oklahoma is becoming a cannabis mecca. And it's amazing for me to even say that sentence, because Oklahoma is, one of those.
It's a conservative Bible Belt state, and it's always been a red state, always been very conservative. But it was nice when I remember when Oklahoma decided to go medical. It was a big deal because they were so staunch against it. And then all of a sudden, after they went medical, they started saying, well, you know what? Nobody died.
Yeah. And I couldn't believe it driving around Oklahoma City, how many outlets there were. And this was just just starting. And I think, that was maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago, and it's even bigger now. And, it's really becoming like an epicenter for cannabis. And I think, if Oklahoma can do it, any place can do it at this point.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed that my state will finally get on the ball and look at this thing and see that it's not an evil monster, and maybe Oklahoma will lead the way for me. So I do have hope.
I think we've all got hope now. Even us in the
Yeah.
UK, it's coming, man. It's just a matter of time. Sweet. So tell me, when you were a judge of all the cannabis cups, and you tried all these juicy strains from the best breeders, man, I'm a little bit envious of you. I will not lie. Well, do you have your own particular process in how you'd pick which one was your favorite?
Right. Well, it starts with the visual, how it looks. Just simple things of like, but I'll use a magnifying glass to look at the actual trichome, make sure it's not premature or overripe. And, the trim job is important, just the aesthetic look of it, and the amount of essential oil production that it looks like has occurred. Then I would say the smell. First, the flower, just smell the flower, then grind it up and smell it after it's been ground, because that certainly releases a lot of terpenoids and flavonoids and things like that as well into the air. And then I roll it up after it's ground properly. I roll it up into a joint, and I start smoking it. And from that point, it's all about burnability and effect, and taste. So what it tastes like, early on, I start with, how does it taste and how does it burn? And how it burns, if it's overfed or unflushed, it'll burn kind of like a piece of charcoal, and you have to keep relighting it, and it'll run, bad down the joint and kind of canoe, and it just won't burn right. And, and if it's well flushed and, lightly fed, it'll burn to a nice wispy, clean white ash.
Yeah.
And I'll literally sometimes just ash into my hand and, use my finger to kind of push it around, and blow it away. And if it's just wispy and clean, light white ash, that it's been grown properly. Because sometimes it's the same strain competing against the same strain many times. If you're in Southern California and you're in the indica category, it's going to be a lot of kush.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're really judging the grower as well. So that burnability is important. And then, you're about halfway through the joint at this point. And now I start thinking about effect, the onset, the first initial effect, and then sort of, chill for a minute and feel if it, if that's a lasting kind of effect. And then, then as you're getting further down the joint, less than half of a joint remains and it still tastes good. It's still, you want to keep hitting it. It's still burning properly. That's important to me too, because that means, that flavor maintained. It wasn't just the first moment that you lit it, it tasted good. And then it just basically tasted like, charcoal all the way down. So, and then, then I put the joint out and just sit back and just, then it's just about effect. Again, is it uplifting? Is it, narcotic? Is it, heart racing and inspiring, or lethargic that makes you want to just kind of sink into the couch and play, all of those things. And that will give me an idea. Okay, is this indica dominant, sativa dominant? Does it even belong in this category? And is the effect long lasting? Because if it's only 10 or 20 minutes or so, that's kind of a quick onset, quick sort of fade. But if an hour goes by and you're still pretty high and you don't want to roll another joint or pick up that half joint that remains, then I know, okay, this has some legs to it as well.
Serious potential.
And that's pretty much how it's judged. And if there's 30 in the category, I'll narrow those 30. I'll do that with each one and narrow those 30 down to 10. because there's
And
10
then
that
try
are,
them all over again.
right. There's 10 that there's probably going to be 10 that don't stand a chance for one reason or another. There's probably going to be another 10 that are kind of in the middle. You know, they're decent, but maybe not mind blowing. And then there's going to be 10 that, you know, each one of them has a chance to be maybe top 5 or top 3. And then you start narrowing that 10 to, you know, 5, and then to 3. And then once I have the 3, then it's a question of 1, 2, 3. So that's how I do it. And
that's a harder question.
And I like, and, you know, and because we have, you know, typically, you know, 6 or 7 days
into the
to judge, you know, I try to get through the 30 in, you know, 2 days or so pretty quickly. You know, if something just doesn't cut it, if I'm smoking it and I'm halfway through the joint and there's just no way it's going to be in the top, you know, 10, that's it. That's it for that sample, you know.
Don't waste your time, right?
But if, you know, if it deserves another look, then I still have those extra, you know, 5 days or so. So I'll revisit some first thing in the morning. You know, once I have it down to my, you know, top 5, you know, or top 3, I'll smoke one of them first thing, just so I know exactly that it wasn't like a residual effect from a previous joint. And then you know, you just narrow it down until you have your top 3, and hopefully, you know.
So this is all like sent out to you. You don't sit in a room and discuss with each other.
Sometimes, I mean, it really depends. I've done so many different types of cannabis judging events that sometimes we had, you know, where the judges would all get together at the end and kind of, you know, throw ideas around, and you know, maybe my third one is your second one, and you know, maybe your first is my second. So, you know, then they kind of craft together, and we used to have these long meetings actually, and to come up with the real, you know, 1, 2, and 3 winner. And you know, it's an amazing, fun process.
No,
but
imagine being at one of them meetings. You know, the listeners of this, just imagine that. Just imagine sitting around that table with all these guys testing which one of these strains wins the Cannabis Cup. Oh my God.
But it would kind of be a little intimidating, though, at the same time, wouldn't you think?
Not one to us high, mate.
Everything's on you.
It can be. It certainly can be. I mean, especially when you have, you know, celebrity judges, people who are experts in the field, in that. And you know, it's also, I tell people, like, it's a lot of work. You know, typically when we get high, we don't take a bunch of notes afterwards. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But here you're like really trying to really, I mean, you're paying close attention and taking notes, and it's work. And there's not a lot of other things you can do during that time. I tell people, don't schedule a bunch of meetings. Don't try to live life, you know, mark out a week of your life to do this. Don't have distractions, because you're really going to have to sit down, and you're going to be probably way more high than you've ever been. And then you still have to think, you know, and take notes.
Exactly.
And,
what a terrible situation to be in, Danny. God damn.
I'm not complaining. I just want people to know that, you know, it's not just a
that's it. That's it. It's work at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, was there one strain that you went through a competition with that was like you'll never forget?
Wow. I would say early on, I remember something called Love Potion number 9 from Reefer Man. I think it was around 2004 or 5. And that was very interesting. That had Colombian landrace genetics. And it really was just a throwback strain. Tasted amazing, smoked amazing. He won the Cannabis Cup with it from Canada, no less, in Amsterdam, which isn't not easy to do.
Well, it must have been a standout if you remembered it from all that far back.
Love Potion number 1 or number 9, something like that. Yeah, that was an amazing one. I remember the first time I smoked Tangy from Crockett Seeds. That was something entirely different from anything I had ever tried before, and it won as well that year in an American Cup, I believe, and I think in Amsterdam. So those are 2 standouts, I would say, that you know, changed the game, you know, so to speak. For me, my first cup that I attended in the mid 90s, it was White Widow, because you know, everything else was NL5 Haze and you know, Skunk number 1, and you know, Northern Lights, Williams Wonder. There was these kind of 5 or 6 strains that were popular or even available. And then here came White Widow, just covered in trichomes, looking like a diamond, completely,
Yes.
completely different, completely.
Still one of my favorites.
Essential oil production just off the charts, potency level off the charts at the time, just a game changer. So I remember that as well, but I wasn't an official judge that year. I actually had a booth at the Cup.
I'll take that role, not official judge.
Yeah, no, I got to try everything, so it was. I didn't have to.
That's
I
all
didn't
I'm
have to
talking
take
about.
notes.
And you didn't have to work.
Yeah,
that's a better place to be.
And I also came home with some seeds of that White Widow, and ended up having a few mother plants that lasted, over a decade. Here in New York that I grew out.
Where are they now? They gone now?
I don't have them, but I'm sure they're out in the world.
Sweet, as long as they're out there somewhere.
Absolutely.
Somebody's enjoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that not only did that change, the Cannabis Cup world and the cannabis world, but changed my life and changed the whole scene over here in the U.S. So yeah, and then there came a bunch of white rhino, great white shark. There was like everybody wanted something white at that point, like in the name, and so there was a kind of a trend there in the 90s. But a great strain, and again, the Tangy and the Love Potion, those are 3 that come to mind. That and also I would say the cheese. When Big Buddha brought the cheese over from
Macky,
that's my shit right there.
Yeah, when he brought that the cheese, that kind of Afghan, throwback strain.
Wow.
And that really caused a lot of noise in Amsterdam. I mean, he won the Cup, I think 2 years in a row, once with a coffee shop and once in the seed bank competition. And I actually got to hand Milo his cup the first time, and I just remember I had talked to him earlier in the week even. He sat us down, me and Dave Beemanstock, another colleague at Highlands, and told us, like, this is the cheese, mate. This is the UK strain. This is, and he's telling me all about it, and we smoked it, and it was strong and amazing, and really like that throwback Afghan flavor. And I was like, hey man, good luck. Anybody can win. And he was like, all right, man, thanks, whatever. And then he won. He was unknown. He was no one.
That's it, just some random guy, and just
a guy. Yeah, just a guy who showed up
backseat
with a strain, and then he won. And I got to hand him the cup, and he was just so excited and just shaking.
It was fucking out of control.
It's a life-changing experience for people, and to be
it's like an Oscar for us guys,
Yeah, right. to be a part of that and feel that energy is awesome. It's amazing. And so that I got to mention that cheese as well.
Well, I heard your alarm go off. I think that means the meeting's up.
Yeah, it's coming. It's like 4 minutes away.
It has been a pleasure speaking to you, Danny.
Well, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, Danny. This has been a lot of fun.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I hope people enjoyed it. And
of course, we got to make sure that people check out your podcast, and we got to check out your book as well, your new book and your old book.
Yeah, the podcast is it's called Grow Bud Yourself. It's on pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. I have links to it on all my social media. It's cultivation oriented. We interview different growers and authors and people in the business, and we try to teach people how to grow their own. That's Grow Bud Yourself. Check me out on all my social medias, Danny Danko HT on Instagram. And the new magazine is called Northeast Leaf Magazine, and we will be publishing in September of 2020, just a little over a month away. It's a free magazine. You can check us out at anyleafmag.com. The book is called Cannabis, A Beginner's Guide to Growing Marijuana, available on Amazon. Other than that, I guess, that's the podcast, the web, the magazine, and the book. Just keep growing, and let's free the leaf.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
it's amazing. What an interview. We appreciate you massively, Danny.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
Do it again in the future sometime if you like. If you're free again sometime soon, be a massive pleasure to have you on again.
Yeah, I'm around and always
awesome.
Always honored and happy to be on the show. So please keep me in
Awesome,
mind. Right on.
Right. Thank you very much, Danny. You have a good night.
Take care, guys. Take care.
Epic.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, man. Bye now.